Welcome to Daily Review, your daily dose of literary exploration. We dive into books that spark curiosity and ignite growth. While our passion often leads us to nonfiction reads that empower and improve your life, no book is off limits. From gripping thrillers to insightful memoirs and compelling fiction to historical accounts, we're here to share and discuss all the interesting reads we discover. Tune in for your next great book idea. Thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Review. We truly appreciate you joining us for your daily dose of literary exploration. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to share these amazing books with you. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating character from history, someone who just seemed to embody the glittering rebellious spirit of the Jazz Age, but also lived this life of just daring contradiction.
Right. We're unpacking quite a few sources here, focusing on this one man's, audacious journey. From a pretty humble childhood, actually, to becoming this notorious yet somehow charming gentleman thief.
Arthur Berry.
That's the one. And our mission today, really, is to pull out the most important nuggets, the key insights from these biographical accounts. We want to explore not just what he did, but why his story still resonates, What does it tell us about that era when everything felt like it was being challenged?
It's like a shortcut to understanding this really complex guy. He's dancing with royalty one minute, gambling with gangsters the next, all while building this criminal empire.
Exactly. And you'll get a sense of the whole arc, the impossible jailbreaks, his surprisingly quiet life after prison. We're peeling back the layers on a truly unique rogue.
Okay, let's unpack this. So let's start in 1924, Long Island. You have to picture this incredibly lavish party.
September evening, yeah. The air's probably thick with, expensive perfume, late summer flowers.
And inside there's this guy. Tuxedo, winged collar, moving with total confidence. The room's full of high society black tie, Parisian gowns, diamonds everywhere.
And he introduces himself as Dr. Gibson.
Dr. Gibson. And apparently people did a double take because he looked uncannily like Ronald Colman.
Yeah, the British actor. Huge star of the silent screen back then, very dashing.
So that's already interesting.
Yeah.
But what makes it truly astonishing is who else is there.
Right. You've got the Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VIII.
Wow.
And his cousin, Lord Louis Mountbatten and Lady Edwina, the absolute pinnacle of society.
And Barry, as Dr. Gibson, just blends right in.
Effortlessly. It's fascinating. And the Prince of Wales himself, he was, quite a character. Known for being a bit rebellious, loved American jazz, hated stuffy royal rules.
So he's staying nearby with the Mountbattens.
At the Cedars, yeah. And the whole scene just screams Jazz Age spontaneity. The prince is clearly charmed by this Dr. Gibson and leans in asking, is that little lark still on?
Referring to a night out on Broadway they'd apparently discussed.
Exactly, a spontaneous trip, just like that. It shows you the mood of the era. But Barry was using this party for something else entirely.
Okay, so what kind of night out are we talking?
Oh, they plunged right into it. New York's roaring 40s, the theater district. It was packed, dazzling lights, speakeasies, cabarets everywhere, illicit energy.
And first stop, Texas Guinan's El Fay Club.
Legendary place. An absolute beacon of Prohibition defiance. And Texas Guinan herself, what an icon. Brash, blue-eyed blonde, former vaudeville star turned nightclub queen.
With that famous greeting, hello, sucker.
Booming over the noise. Yeah, set the tone instantly. The sources call her formidable, presiding over this bacchanalian feast, like a lion tamer with pet tigers, someone said. Can you imagine the sheer energy?
Almost electric.
It was the place to be seen. You had Al Jolson, Jack Dempsey the boxer, and on this night, a future king. Guinan bragged about it later, of course. Called the prince a little fellow who never had a backyard or a dirty face.
Classic Texas Guinan. And it really highlights the Prohibition reality, doesn't it? The hidden booze.
Oh, absolutely. Liquor seemed to flow freely, but it was all carefully hidden. At El Fay, it was stashed next door. They'd access it through a hidden hole in the wall, just a loose brick you could remove.
A constant game of cat and mouse with the feds.
Defined the era, really. Made every drink feel like a little rebellion.
And the night didn't end there.
Nope. The prince, who they discreetly called Mr. Windsor, and his group, including Barry, they head over to the Club Deauville on East 59th, another swell spot.
Bit more refined, maybe.
Supposedly. Had an atmosphere of mystery, attracted the socially prominent New Yorkers, but they were just as eager to break the rules,
And the prince is enjoying himself.
Clearly. Praising a singer, requesting Aloha O, which was a massive hit that year, chatting about shows, music, even complaining about how hard Prohibition made it to find good liquor.
Sounds like a typical carefree jazz age night out.
On the surface, yes. But here's the twist. The real reason Barry was there.
Ah, the hidden motive.
Exactly. Dr. Gibson was Arthur Barry. And while he's charming the prince, dancing, making small talk, he's also meticulously casing the joint. The Cosden mansion where the party started.
No way, while the party's going on.
You got it. At some point, he slips away, climbs a rose trellis up to a porch roof in a tuxedo, mind you.
That takes some skill.
And nerve. He finds a second-floor window left open, slips inside. White silk gloves, no fingerprints. He creeps through the bedrooms, checking dressing tables, drawers.
Not stealing anything then and there.
No, it was pure reconnaissance. Scouting for valuables, figuring out escape routes for a future job. All while the party, royalty included, is happening downstairs, completely oblivious.
Audacious doesn't even cover it.
Yeah.
Chilling, really.
It perfectly captures the cunning that would define Arthur Barry.
So who was this guy before he became the charming Dr. Gibson? We need to go back, right, to his early years.
Absolutely. To understand the man, you have to look at the beginning. Arthur Barry, born December 10th, 1896, in Worcester, Massachusetts.
So, okay.
Irish Catholic parents. He was the sixth of 9 kids who survived. They lived in Vernon Hill, described as the poor workaday part of Worcester.
In those 3-deckers.
Exactly. Those big wooden multifamily houses, 3 floors, 1 flat each, dense working-class neighborhood. His dad, Thomas Barry, was a laborer in breweries, worked his way up to foreman, provided a steady, if modest, living.
So a humble start. A world away from Long Island mansions.
A stark contrast. And what's really crucial, I think, is how incredibly early he got involved in serious crime, and dangerous crime at that.
How early?
Age 13. He became a courier for a guy named Lowell Jack.
Lowell Jack.
A retired but notorious safecracker. A peat man or yeg man in the slang of the time. Jack had moved on to supplying nitroglycerin soup, they called it, to younger thieves.
Nitroglycerin, that sounds terrifyingly dangerous.
It was unbelievably dangerous. Jack would extract it by heating dynamite in water. The resulting oily liquid was incredibly unstable. A bump, a shake, a temperature change, boom.
And Arthur's job was?
To transport this stuff in a suitcase stuffed with cotton for $5 a trip.
Which was decent money back then, almost $50 today, but still.
It's not petty theft, is it? It's high-stakes, serious stuff, and it must have, desensitized him to risk incredibly young.
Didn't take long for him to get caught, though.
No. At 16, though, some reports initially said 13 he was picked up in Pittsfield for attempted breaking and entering.
Was the evidence strong?
Pretty weak, actually. They found a stolen watch near where he ran, but couldn't prove he dropped it. He insisted he was innocent. His dad couldn't be there. Was ill at the time.
But he was convicted anyway.
He was, and that led to a really pivotal moment. Sentence served at the Massachusetts Reformatory at Concord.
The Reformatory? That doesn't sound good.
Well, ironically, it was known as a school for the education of criminals.
Oh, great. So not much reforming going on.
Quite the opposite. Inmates plan future crimes, learn new tricks from hardened criminals. It was basically an underworld networking event. Graduates were even called Concord graduates.
So it pushed him further down that path.
It seems that way. He got denied parole in 1915, couldn't guarantee a job or a place to live, the usual hurdles. Then he violated parole in 1916, got sent back for 5 years. The system meant to fix him arguably just solidified his trajectory.
So he's stuck in the system.
Yeah.
But then World War I happens, and that becomes his way out.
In a really unexpected way, yeah. His ticket to freedom, as the source puts it. The war was raging in Europe. Military drills were happening even in reformatories.
So he enlists.
Signed up for the U.S. Army July 12, 1917, basically trading one kind of confinement for another, but with the hope of eventual freedom. Interestingly, he listed his older sister as next of kin, not his parents, maybe trying to create some distance.
Given his background, you'd expect, well, maybe infantry or something basic.
You would, but his aptitude tests led somewhere completely surprising. He was assigned as a first aid man, a medic.
A medic. Arthur Barry.
I know, right? It's this fascinating contradiction. He trained hard carrying stretchers, bandaging, giving inoculations, even studying anatomy.
Anatomy.
Yeah. And the sources say he actually had a childhood dream of becoming a surgeon.
Wow. A surgeon. Dedicated to healing. Yeah. It's hard to square that with the jewel thief he became.
It really is. It shows this hidden capacity, maybe, for care and precision that he eventually channeled elsewhere.
So he ships out. What was that like, the Western Front?
Horrific. Unimaginable, really. The voyage over on the Princess Matoika was terrifying, constant U-boat threats, sleeping fully clothed, ready to abandon ship. They had a false alarm with a floating bucket that scared them witless.
Just the journey was hell.
And then he arrived in what soldiers called hell on earth, charging into no man's land, that desolate, cratered wasteland, ignoring bullets, shells, just focused on finding the wounded.
What could medics even do out there?
Not much, really. Minimal supplies, iodine, bandages, maybe morphine. They had Red Cross armbands, but otherwise looked like regular soldiers. They'd stabilize casualties in makeshift dressing stations, often just shell holes or dugouts. Crude, brutal efficiency.
He saw intense fighting.
Definitely. The Battle of Sergy, July 1918. His unit, the 47th, went up against elite Prussian guards. Savage fighting, the village changed hands 9 times.
And the conditions for medics.
Terrible. There are accounts of German troops deliberately targeting medics, bayoneting wounded soldiers, bombing hospital trucks, just brutal.
Did Barry get hurt himself?
He did. Shell-shocked, burned by mustard gas. Headlines back home read, "Wounded, degree undetermined."
Sounds like Hemingway's experience almost. That loss of immortality.
Very similar. But for Barry, recovery meant a second chance. And how did he use it? By diving headfirst into Paris nightlife.
Of course. Folie Bergère, Champs-Élysées.
Cognac in Montparnasse cafes, trying to wash away the horror, you imagine.
But the war ends. Armistice. He gets to go home then.
Not quite yet. He gets assigned to the post-armistice occupation of the Rhineland, which meant boredom, lots of boredom, and strict rules against fraternizing with Germans, though soldiers found ways around that.
His unit got a bad nickname, didn't they?
Yeah, the 4th Division became the Forgotten Fourth, or the Hard Luck Division. They were scattered, isolated, morale just plummeted.
Soldiers just wanted out.
Desperately, they'd interrupt General Pershing's speeches chanting, "When do we go home?" It was raw frustration.
Why the delay?
Politics, basically. Allied leaders needed troops there as leverage to force Germany to sign the final peace treaty. Their power was dwindling as armies demobilized. Barry and the others were just pawns.
So this long watch on the Rhine must have been agonizing.
Absolutely, adding to the disillusionment. And the final insult, they finally get back to New York Harbor, July 1919, on the USS Mobile. Home is right there. Quarantine, smallpox outbreak on board, mandatory shots, several more days stuck on the ship, literally looking at the skyline.
Unbelievable.
He finally got his honorable discharge in September 1919. A free man, yes, but you can see how these experiences might shape a cynical worldview.
Okay, so he's back in Worcester, fall of 1919. War hero, technically. Does he find work?
No, absolutely couldn't. His criminal record was still there, a major obstacle. Plus, anti-Irish Catholic bias was rampant in hiring practices then. Factories just weren't interested in a Concord graduate, war service or not.
So, despite his mother begging him to stay,
he heads to New York City, finds it, in his words, hard, cynical, ruthless, everyone for themselves. And he decides, basically, if I can't make it honestly, I'll steal to get to the top.
conscious decision.
Seems so. He apparently ran through his options like an underworld job fair in his head.
What do you consider?
Safe cracking, he rejected that. Despite the early nitroglycerin experience, he knew he didn't have the specialized skills for modern vaults.
Okay, what else?
Bank robbery, nope. Too much teamwork involved. He preferred to work solo. Mugging dismissed that as unprofitable and, quote, disreputable. Lacked class, presumably.
So that left.
Burglary. He remembered a break-in he'd planned meticulously as a teenager. He liked avoiding confrontation. And he identified his ideal target. Jewelry.
Why jewelry, specifically?
High value, easy to carry, and crucially, once you pry the gems out of their settings, they become almost untraceable. He called it the perfect way for any smart man to clean up.
Smart and cynical. So he puts this plan into action.
Early 1920, Yonkers, Westchester County. He scouts a wealthy neighborhood, sees people dining inside a house, buys white silk gloves, a flashlight. Standard procedure developing.
And his method?
Climbs a pillar to a porch roof, finds an unlocked second-floor window that becomes his signature, slips inside. His whole trick, as he called it, was speed. Work fast, go after the main stuff, speedy getaway. No more than 3 minutes inside.
3 minutes.
That was the goal. Back in his apartment, he'd pry out the gems, and the gold or platinum settings, he'd toss them into the Hudson River, destroying evidence, preventing tracing.
Wow, methodical.
Extremely. And this consistent approach, second-floor entry, often via porch or ladder, usually while residents were downstairs, quickly earned him a nickname from the police.
The ladder burglar.
That's the one. He hit wealthy estates in Ardsley frequently, pulled off a big $10,000 jewel theft from a banker named Edward Thelman. His efficiency baffled police for a while.
But his past wasn't entirely smooth. There was an incident in Bridgeport.
Right. April 1922. Things got messy. At a dance in Bridgeport, Connecticut, using the alias Arthur Cummings, he gets involved in a shooting. A man named Peter Wagner is killed.
Did Barry pull the trigger?
He denied it vehemently, said he wasn't even armed, tried to blame someone else. The evidence linking him directly was weak, but the coroner's report was damning. Found both Barry and his accomplice responsible, said there was no justification for the shooting.
So facing murder charges.
Initially.
Yeah.
But his lawyer worked a deal. Got it down to manslaughter, which meant, crucially, he could stay in the local Fairfield County Jail awaiting trial, not a state prison.
And being Barry.
Yeah.
He didn't stay long, did he?
He did not. November 1922, same month, Howard Carter found King Tut's tomb, interestingly enough.
A treasure hunter finding treasure.
While another treasure hunter, Arthur Barry, makes a daring escape from Fairfield County Jail, a clear sign of things to come. He simply wasn't going to be held.
So Barry escapes jail, and he's chosen his profession. And the timing. The roaring 20s. It just seems like the perfect storm for him, doesn't it?
Absolutely tailor-made. It was an era practically designed for a thief of distinction, as you called him. Think about the obsession with jewelry.
It reached fever pitch then, right?
Totally. Humanity's always loved shiny things, from Stone Age beads to Egyptian gold. But in the 20s, jewels weren't just pretty. They were blatant symbols of wealth, power, status, just like they were for Roman emperors who passed laws about who could wear them.
So the demand was huge.
Massive. And Barry was like a character stepping out of, say, an Agatha Christie novel. Remember Poirot musing about turning his brains to crime when seeing jewels? Barry did it.
And New York was the place to be for gems.
Became the world's diamond-cutting capital, overtaking Antwerp. Diamonds are trumps, one newspaper declared. But this public flaunting created a paradox.
Me them targets.
Exactly. Police chiefs complained constantly about women dressed up like a pawn shop window. It got so bad, some wealthy women started wearing paste fakes in public.
But not everyone.
Luckily for Barry, no. Most ignored the advice. If you must have expensive jewels, don't wear them. Vanity was his ally.
And the whole social mood fed into this, too. The lost generation.
Definitely. That post-war disillusionment. Live for today, tomorrow we die. Indulge in pleasure, embrace hedonism, and America was just swimming in money.
Unprecedented prosperity.
Real rich people, more comfortably off people than ever before, and they wanted stuff. New must-haves were exploding.
Cars.
Quadrupled in number, completely changed life. Radios, the nightly miracle in millions of homes, gramophones bringing music everywhere.
And this materialism extended beyond just buying things.
Oh yeah. Gambling wasn't just dice and cards anymore. Wall Street speculation was like a national sport. Everyone was playing the market. Even President Coolidge, Silent Cal, famously said, "The chief business of the American people is business."
So this relentless pursuit of wealth, of living well,
created the perfect environment for Barry. People wanted the symbols of wealth, the jewels he specialized in stealing. As Barry himself said, it was that kind of time. Why not live well?
And then there's Prohibition, the great failed experiment.
Maybe the single biggest factor shaping the criminal landscape. It split the country, conservatives versus liberals, traditionalists versus progressives.
And turned ordinary people into lawbreakers.
Overnight, especially in places like New York. People scrambling for speakeasy memberships, memorizing passwords, sneaking through kitchens to hidden bars, running into figures like the night mayor, Jimmy Walker, who spent more time in clubs than City Hall.
How did this help Barry specifically?
It created this perfect double world for a jewel thief with class. He could charm the rich over illegal cocktails in a speakeasy, fit right in, then turn around and drink and gamble with the actual gangsters supplying the booze. The lines were completely blurred.
And he lived the high life himself, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. A self-proclaimed nightlife plunger said he blew $500 in a single night once.
Which is like over $7,000 today. Enough for 2 Model Ts.
Exactly. Regular at Club Duville, Texas Skinnins. Drinking with slick lawyers like William Fallon, the great mouthpiece guy, got over 100 homicide acquittals.
Wow. Who else did he rub shoulders with?
Guys like Dapper Don Collins, real name Robert Tourbillon, a notorious blackmailer called a Colossus of Rogues. Barry escorted chorus girls, went to boxing matches at the Garden.
He really embraced the lifestyle.
Lived it up, as he put it. It was a gay and hectic life. I knew how to give money the air. His lifestyle wasn't just funded by crime. It reflected the era's hedonism and moral ambiguity.
Okay, so Barry wasn't just lucky. He was clearly a mastermind. You said burglary is 80% preparation.
That was his mantra, yeah. A lesson apparently learned from his early mentor, Lowell Jack. Preparedness and thorough planning are the keystones to successful crime. Barry treated it like a science.
And his intelligence gathering was key, not just random break-ins.
Not at all. He devoured the society pages, called the columnists his unwitting accomplices. They'd often run photos of prominent women wearing their best jewels at parties.
Giving him a shopping list, almost.
Pretty much. And he claimed he memorized huge chunks of the social register, that massive book listing America's elite families' thousands of names.
Why? What was he looking for?
Movements, travel plans, engagement announcements, party dates. He needed to know when his target and their jewels would be home. As he said, no use to make a visit if the missus had her load of ice with her.
Load of ice. Nice. He planned everything meticulously.
Down to disabling security. He had some ingenious tricks for that.
Like posing as an alarm repairman.
Sometimes, yeah. He understood those early electrical alarms, which were often pretty basic, installed by electricians, not specialized firms. He knew how to cut a wire, or even better, bend the clapper on the bell.
Bend the clapper.
The little hammer that strikes the bell. If you bent it just right, it wouldn't ring, but the circuit wouldn't register as broken. Minimal evidence. He'd even get staff to sign off on his service call.
That's bold.
Yeah.
And he studied patrol routes. Guard dogs.
Night watchmen to time his entry. And dogs. He had a system. Used his own dog's scent, food, or even brought female dogs along to distract male watchdogs. He noted, nearly everybody keeps male watchdogs. That is a mistake.
Smart. And his getaways were just as planned.
Oh, yeah. Mapped police routes, knew train schedules to the minute, claimed his jobs were timed like a radio program, found hidden paths parallel to main roads to vanish while police sped by.
And then there's the persona, the American Raffles.
That's how he got close. Crashing exclusive parties as Arthur Gibson, perfecting the accent, exuding class and confidence. He didn't just attend, he blended. Like Fitzgerald wrote about Gatsby's parties. Moths among the whisperings and the champagne and the stars.
Mingling with his future victims.
Charming them, probably. Scouting the layout, identifying valuables, all while playing the part.
What about this supposed moral code? He returned jewels once.
He did. $15,000 worth to a Dr. Joseph Blake, a war surgeon. Claimed it was conscience. But that seems like a calculated anomaly, maybe for publicity or self-justification.
Because usually...
His attitude was clear. Anyone who could afford to wear a $100,000 necklace could afford to lose it. Less morality, more rationalization.
But he wasn't violent, right? That was key to his image.
Crucial. He drew comparisons to Willie Sutton, the bank robber. Sutton also famously never fired a shot, used disguises, planning they called him Willie the Actor.
And Sutton also reassured victims, said insurance would cover it.
Exactly. That combination charm, nonviolence, targeting the insured wealthy who wouldn't really suffer, made Barry palatable, almost romanticized. A rogue, sure, but one operating by his own strangely acceptable rules in that morally ambiguous era.
Let's talk about the heists that really made his name. The legendary ones.
Yeah.
Starting with the Cosden job, right?
Yeah.
Or the Mountbatten heist.
September 1924. That one was huge. The target. The Cosden Mansion in Sands Point, Long Island. Seriously high-end territory. Guggenheim's, Astor's, Vanderbilt's nearby. Fitzgerald's East Egg.
What made it so appealing to Barry?
Two things, mainly. Lady Mountbatten was known to travel with a lot of her jewelry, about $42,000 worth, and the Prince of Wales was visiting the Costens constantly, making it a huge news item already. High profile, high stakes.
And the robbery itself was daring.
Incredibly. He sneaks into the Mountbatten's room at night. Lord Mountbatten actually stirs in his sleep. Barry has to flatten himself behind a drape, holding his breath, missed being caught by inches.
Wow. What did he get away with?
Big haul. $130,000 in cash and jewels from the Cosdens, plus Lady Mountbatten's $42,000, so $170,000 total. He did miss an $8,000 wallet and some famous pearls, the Fletcher pearls, maybe too rushed.
Did they try to hush it up?
Because the royals.
They tried. Desperate to avoid scandal, but the news broke the next day anyway. Shared headlines with the Leopold and Lube murder verdict. Became a massive international story, Rotterdam, Shanghai, Mountbatten gem mystery. People were outraged, blaming the prince for hanging out with the wrong crowd.
Exactly. Some British businessman even wrote to the government complaining about the prince fraternizing with social outcasts in America.
Okay, that's one huge score. Then came the Plaza Hotel job, the Donahue heist.
September 1925. Even more audacious, arguably. Target. James and Jessie Donahue, the Woolworth heiress. staying at the plaza while their mansion was renovated.
And she had amazing pearls.
Incredible pearls, a famous rose-hued collection, including a brand new 54 pearl strand just finished by Cartier, valued at $450,000.
$150,000.
Yeah.
In 1925.
Astronomical sum. And Barry just walks into the plaza,
Ow.
posed as a businessman, looked the part, expensive suit, confident air, got a pass key somehow, walked into their suite. He could hear them talking in another room.
While they were still awake. The nerve.
Unbelievable. Goes into the bedroom, uses his famous teeth test to check the pearls are real.
The teeth check.
Yeah, real pearls feel slightly gritty against your teeth because of natural imperfections. Fakes are smooth. He grabs the $450,000 necklace, another $200,000 strand, in and out in no more than 3 minutes.
The police response must have been massive.
Immediate. Commissioner Enright himself, Chief of Detectives Coughlin, they put their best guys on it. Detective Lieutenant Oscar Mayer, Sergeant Grover Brown. Huge pressure because of who the Donahues were.
Now, Barry didn't just sell this stuff to any old fence, did he? He had this whole other system, the gem kidnapper strategy.
Right. This was really cynical, but also quite shrewd. Instead of getting maybe 10 cents on the dollar from a fence, he often worked with a private detective named Noel Scaffa.
A private eye. How did that work?
Scaffa would act as a middleman. He'd approach the insurance companies and essentially ransom the jewels back to them. He'd claim he'd accidentally found them, maintaining this thin veil of legality.
And the insurance companies went for it.
Often, yes. It was cheaper for them to pay Scaffa a hefty finder's fee than to pay out the full insured value of the jewels, which could be enormous.
But the public must have hated this. It sounds like rewarding the criminals.
Huge outrage. Newspaper editorials slammed it. What kind of law enforcement is this? People called for Scaffa's arrest for compounding a felony, taking money to cover up a crime.
But Barry just saw it as good business.
Purely pragmatic. Why sell low to a fence when the insurance company would pay more? As he said, this was better than a total loss for the company. It created this weird hidden economy where victims and insurers often preferred to deal quietly with guys like Scaffa than involve the police because they'd get some value back.
So besides stealing jewels, Barry had another big passion, right? Gambling.
Oh yeah, a serious habit. But he turned it into a business too. He set up the Harlequin Club sometime in the 1920s.
And the location was interesting.
Very. It was in the former home of Joseph Bone Elwell, a famous bridge expert who'd been murdered there in 1920, a huge unsolved case at the time.
Setting up a gambling den in a murder house? Classy.
Well, it served a purpose. It wasn't just for his own gambling fix, craps, poker, blackjack, red dog, all running constantly with illegal booze. It was also a perfect front to launder the money from his heists.
Make the stolen cash look like gambling winnings.
Exactly. Sophisticated stuff.
And who frequented this place? Just gamblers.
It was an incredible mix. The sources call it Manhattan high flyers and lowlifes, mocksters, con artists, shady Wall Street types, other thieves, all rubbing shoulders. As Barry said, nobody inquired where another man's bankroll came from.
Any famous names besides Barry?
Oh, yeah. Reads like a rogues gallery. You had Abe Goldstein, the bantamweight boxing champ, only 5'5", Dr. Robert Thompson, a disgraced doctor with a murder conviction.
Like Careful Crowd.
And William McGee and Edward Fuller, stockbrokers who'd bankrupted themselves after bilking investors out of $4 million. Plus William Fallon again, the great mouthpiece lawyer, and figures known only as Dan the Dude.
And wasn't there a connection to a really famous disappearance case?
Joseph Crater. Good time show. Prominent lawyer, big political connections, Tammany Hall guy. He was a regular spender at the Harlequin Club. His vanishing act in 1930 became one of the biggest mysteries ever, like the Jimmy Hoffa case later on.
So the Harlequin Club wasn't just a card game. It was a real crossroads of the Jazz Age underworld.
A perfect microcosm. Legitimate power, illegal wealth, outright crime, all mingling together, lines totally blurred. Reputation didn't matter as much as ready cash.
Amidst all this crime and gambling, Barry somehow finds time for romance. The story with Anna Blake is quite something.
It really is. A whole saga of love and, well, a lot of lies. They met around summer 1924, introduced by Jimmy Hines.
The powerful Harlem politician.
That's him. Ran Harlem like his personal kingdom. His political machine was like a mini version of the whole complex New York City scene from Columbia University intellectuals down to the newest immigrants in tenements.
And Anna Blake worked for him.
She was a key player, a social worker, a political organizer, and recently widowed. She was Hines's connection to the community, helping with evictions, funerals, and, crucially, getting out the vote. Her husband, Frank, had died just in October 1924. She was 35, a single mother.
And then she meets Barry, still using the Dr. Gibson alias.
Still Dr. Gibson, and he just sweeps her off her feet, even though he was 8 years younger.
She fell hard for him.
Completely smitten. She said years later, "When I was with Arthur, I was so happy nothing else mattered. I was crazy about him. Found him handsome, gay, and kind. That was enough for me."
What did he tell her he did for a living?
Kept up a cover story, said he just sells things, office furniture and supplies. Vague enough, plausible, and it explained why he was often away when he was really casing jobs or pulling heists.
But the alias couldn't last forever. How did she find out?
The inevitable happened. They ran into someone from Worcester, Barry's hometown, and the person calls him Arthur Barry.
Oops. Had to confess then.
Had to admit the name wasn't Gibson. Interestingly, their memories of what else he confessed differed later on. Anna thought he admitted to being a gambler.
Which was maybe more acceptable back then.
Possibly. Barry claimed he told her he was a bootlegger, which, like Gatsby, was almost a romanticized source of illicit wealth in the Jazz Age. Less grubby than jewel thief, maybe?
Did it matter to Anna when she knew he was lying?
Apparently not. She said she did not care if Barry was involved in shady dealings or how he made his money. The man himself had captivated her.
So they stay together.
They get married. Baltimore, December 10th, 1925, Barry's 29th birthday. And he used his real name on the marriage certificate.
That's a big step.
It is. Although back in New York, her friends apparently still mostly knew her as Mrs. Gibson. So the double life continued, in a way. But their bond, built on this weird mix of deception and genuine devotion, became incredibly strong. One of the most constant things in his life, actually.
Okay, so Barry's pulling off these huge heists. He's got Anna. He's running a gambling club.
Right.
But the law's closing in, right? He gets a new nickname.
Yeah, as his methods were refined, he became known as the dinner thief. But this distinctive pattern also attracted serious attention, specifically from Harold King.
The Nassau County
The
detective.
chief of detectives, yeah. Not your average cop. Described as scholarly, refined, at home in any drawing room, but also tough, relentless, known for being able to crack the hardest kind of nut.
And Nassau County was prime hunting ground.
Absolutely. Exploding with wealth in the 20s, basically a suburb of Wall Street, perfect place for jewel thieves. King was dealing with a serious crime wave in the fall of 1925, hits on the Schaffers, Hitchcocks, Flamins, Phipps families.
All likely Barry, the dinner thief.
That was King's theory. Striking while families were eating downstairs, often leaving that latter behind. But King also figured out Barry wasn't always working alone.
You have an accomplice.
James Monahan, alias Boston Billy Williams, supposedly as a career criminal, prison escape from Massachusetts. Used names like James Thayer, supposedly as a joke on the judge who sentenced him.
So Monahan and Barry teamed up.
It was described as a partnership of convenience. Sometimes together, sometimes solo, fluid. Monahan was just as cunning as Barry.
How so?
He'd pose as a real estate guy, play golf at fancy country clubs to gather intel on targets, check out security, real reconnaissance work.
Did King ever get close to catching them?
There was a shootout in Connecticut in 1926. King tried to nab Monahan after a burglary, but Monahan got away. It did confirm for King, though, that there was definitely an accomplice involved in these Long Island jobs. The elite were terrified.
Monahan sounds pretty sharp, too, like the time he tried to rob Nathan Jonas.
Right, the Brooklyn banker. Jonas just calmly told him, "We have no valuables here." And Monahan, instead of pushing it or getting violent, just left, took nothing. Preferred a smooth operation over confrontation, much like Barry.
This all leads up to their biggest job together, right? The masterpiece.
The Livermore heist. May 1927. Huge target. Jesse Livermore, the legendary Wall Street investor, the stock market god. He'd just made a killing, $4 million. His Kings Point mansion, shared with a silk manufacturer named Harry Aronson, was irresistible.
How did they pull it off?
Chilling precision. Gray suits blending into the twilight, peeked in the windows, saw the owners were dining. Barry cuts the phone line.
Standard move for him.
Then the polite threats. Tells the Aronsons, "We are sorry indeed to have disturbed your rest." Tells the Livermores regarding the jewels, "You'll never miss them."
Casual menace. What about when Livermore reached for the phone?
That was classic Barry. Livermore instinctively goes for it. Barry just says, "Cooley, naughty, naughty," and flashes his revolver. Livermore dropped the phone fast.
What did they get?
About $100,000 in jewels. Though Dorothea Livermore's incredible $150,000 emerald engagement ring was mostly in a vault, so they missed the biggest prize. Shows you can't plan for everything.
Did police suspect Barry and Monahan right away?
Actually, no, they were initially confused. The precision, plus the fact that valuables had been missed in earlier heists, like the Cosden job, the wallet, the pearls, made them suspect an inside job. They couldn't believe outsiders could be that good.
So the Livermore job was really the peak of their operation.
The absolute zenith. Made Barry a phantom menace, terrifying the Jazz Age elite.
But Harold King, the scholarly cop, he didn't give up.
Relentless, he kept digging, meticulously tracing a Nash coupe used in one robbery. And that trail led him straight to Anna Blake's bungalow out in Lake Ronkonkoma. Barry was using it as a base.
King staked it out.
Long stakeout. But patience paid off. They finally nabbed Barry.
How did Barry react?
Not well. Sneeringly and sullenly, according to reports. Refused to answer questions, stuck to the Arthur Gibson alias. He did admit to the previous prison time in Massachusetts and Connecticut, though. A crack in the facade.
Then the district attorney gets involved. Elvin Edwards.
Right. Edwards apparently fancied himself a bit of a cop, known for getting results. His interrogation tactic was apparently tremendously successful. He offered Barry a deal.
What was the deal?
Confess everything, and Anna Blake walks free. No prosecution for her.
And Barry took it. To protect Anna.
He did. Provided a full, detailed confession to the Livermore robbery, even described returning Dorothea Livermore's pinky ring in a very touching way. That little bit of the gentleman thief again.
Did Edwards keep his end of the bargain? Let Anna go.
He did. Apparently, he believed her story that she thought Barry was just a successful gambler, not involved in the robberies. So Anna was released.
And this confession led to the Tour of Lost Diamonds.
Yeah, the press loved that. Barry, under heavy guard, takes the police on this incredible tour, pointing out 18 different houses he and Monahan had looted over the years.
Like a guided tour of the social register.
Exactly. Reporters called it a path of plunder. And incredibly, Dorothea Livermore, one of his victims, saw him during this and was apparently quite charmed, saying something like, "I know he's terrible, but isn't he charming?"
Amazing. What about Monahan? Barry testified against him.
He did, as part of the deal for Emma's freedom. Though Barry apparently tried to downplay Monahan's role a bit in his confession, maybe shift some blame, even suggesting other gangs were operating too.
Did they catch Monahan?
Eventually, yeah. After another persistent hunt involving detectives and private eyes, there was another shootout in Soundview, Connecticut. Monahan was shot in the leg this time.
What was he like in jail?
Apparently quite eccentric, devouring ice cream, trying to escape using a spoon he'd sharpened into a key.
A spoon? Seriously?
Seriously. Didn't work, obviously. Barry's testimony sealed his fate. Monahan pleaded guilty to burglary and larceny. Headlines predicted 80 years.
What did he actually get?
50 years at hard labor, basically a life sentence, also kept him from facing potential murder charges elsewhere. A grim end for Boston Billy.
And Barry's sentence?
25 years. Sentenced to Sing Sing initially, then transferred to Auburn. He famously quipped he didn't like that hard labor stuff.
And Anna Blake. What happened to her during all this?
She remained incredibly loyal, visited him every single week, even moved to Ossining near Sing Sing to make the visits easier. Dedicated her life to getting him freed, said she just lived for the day when he would return to me.
That's quite a devotion, considering everything.
It's a really surprising, poignant part of his story, a bond that somehow survived all the crime and deception, hashtag 12, the audacious Auburn breakout and life as a fugitive, 1929-1932.
So Barry ends up in Auburn prison. 25-year sentence. What was life like there?
Pretty grim. Standard prison routine, early wake-up, yard duty, working in the cabinet-making shop, monotonous. The old death house where hundreds had been executed was now just an admin building, a constant reminder of the place's history.
And Barry, even inside, he kept up his lies.
Meticulously. On his prison records, he claimed he was 6 years older than he was, a high school graduate, single, a salesman, blamed everything on evil associates.
Never taking responsibility.
Not on paper, anyway. His listed possessions were just tiny things, cufflinks, a stud about $100, a far cry from the millions he'd stolen. He was inmate 43077, maybe parole in 1948.
But things weren't smooth sailing for him in Auburn, were they? He ended up in segregation.
Frequently. That was the prison within a prison for violent inmates or those needing protection. In Barry's case, he was often there because he was accused of stirring things up, inciting riots. There were rumors other inmates were after him, furious about his escape during a previous riot, feeling he'd used them.
This led to a trial while he was still inside.
Yes, the Auburn riot trial in December 1932. Big deal for the state. Barry and George Small, another escapee, were formally charged with inciting the riot and assaulting an officer.
Heavy charges. How did the trial go?
Huge media attention, tight security. Barry, always image conscious, successfully argued to wear a suit instead of prison clothes. The judge, Judge Underwood, seemed furious with Barry's notoriety, even basically told the jury Barry should have testified, which was completely out of line.
But the jury
Acquitted them. Stunning verdict. Underwood was livid, blamed the media for glorifying criminals. The police commissioner agreed, saying you can't expect a jury to read about a hero one day and convict him the next.
How did Barry react to the acquittal?
Pure swagger, turned to the jury and said, "The verdict is okay by me, you did your duty." But it didn't change. His sentence parole was still decades away.
But Barry wasn't planning on waiting decades, was he? He had that incredible escape before the trial. Black Sunday?
July 29th, 1929. Absolutely audacious. He planned it with George Small, the medical student, and Joe Caprico, a hoodlum. They ambushed guards, knocked one out cold, seized guns, pistols, riot guns, even a submachine gun.
And this sparked a full-scale riot.
Exactly. Barry and 3 others went over the wall, and the whole prison erupted. Hours of gunfire between inmates and guards, fire set. Newspapers hired planes to get aerial photos. Total chaos.
Barry's getaway must have been frantic.
Harrowing. Ditched the car, broke into a house for clothes. He had 2 broken toes, a bullet wound in his shoulder. Then shattered glass flew into his eyes.
He was blinded.
Temporarily. He said, "Both my eyes were filled with splinters. I was blind."
And it was supposedly then he had this big epiphany.
The I'm cured moment.
I finally realized what a damn fool I had been. If I lived, I'd never steal anything again. Whether you believe it or not, that became his story. He managed to steal another car, drove through the night, got a train to New York.
And Anna, how did she react to the escape news?
Stunned. Headlines screaming about the riot, torn between hope he'd make it and terror he'd be killed.
So now he's a fugitive again. How did they manage?
They adopted the alias Jim and Ann Toner. Although a robbery in Massachusetts soon after the escape, using Barry's methods, suggests the cure maybe didn't take immediately. Anna was key to them staying hidden.
Absolutely crucial. She became expert at losing police tails, ducking into subways, switching taxis. They settled into a quiet, unexciting life in Newark, New Jersey. Barry even signed cards to her love, Jim.
And the story about the police neighbors.
Incredible, isn't it? 2 Newark cops lived in their building. They'd chat, play cards, checkers. The Toners' neighbors had no idea who they really were.
Where'd they feel safest?
They found this rural farmhouse in Andover, New Jersey. Belonged to an Otto Reuter, cold, rustic, but Barry said he felt more comfortable than all the other years of my life there.
And it was there he finally told Anna everything.
His full confession, yeah. All the details of my nefarious career. Laid it all bare. He even thought about running for township clerk in Andover as Jim Toner.
Seriously? While a wanted fugitive?
He considered it. Decided campaigning publicly was probably too risky in the end. Still, the sheer nerve. Hashtag tag 13, celebrity crook, and the Lindbergh kidnapping, 1932.
Then comes 1932 and the crime that shocked America, the Lindbergh kidnapping. And somehow Barry gets dragged into this.
In a completely baseless way, yeah. Val O'Farrell, the private eye who helped catch Barry back in 27, saw an opportunity. He became a guest columnist, a crack manhunter for the Daily News.
And he points the finger at Barry.
With zero evidence. His theory was that the Depression forced jewel thieves like Barry into kidnapping, stealing living things. He even tried to link Barry's supposed use of interlocking circles, a symbol associated with the kidnapper, calling it distinctly Barry-esque.
That's a huge leap. Any other evidence?
Just some anonymous tipster, Daisy Brown, writing in to say Barry was cruel enough and clever enough. Pure speculation fueled by the public frenzy.
How did Barry react to being accused of kidnapping the Lindbergh baby?
With characteristic irony. From his jail cell, he quipped, "Lindbergh took me off the front page. It would be a good joke if you put me back again."
Were these claims ever taken seriously by police?
No. They were quickly debunked. The Lindbergh staff confirmed they never saw Barry near the house. Dr. Condon, who dealt with the kidnapper, didn't pick Barry out of a lineup. Police even checked his shoe prints against those at the scene, no match. It was just O'Farrell trying to capitalize on Barry's notoriety.
But this bizarre connection, even though false, actually boosted Barry's fame.
Paradoxically, yes. It helped solidify his image as a super criminal. People started comparing him to Gerald Chapman, the gentleman bandit who was public enemy number one in the 20s. Barry became the new Prince of Thieves.
And this led to that big newspaper series about it.
Exactly. Grace Robinson, a top female journalist, got an exclusive 8-part series in the Daily News in October 1932. The intimate life story of Arthur Barry.
What was that like? Him telling his story?
Robinson described him giving a master class in gems, even while handcuffed, showing her the teeth test for pearls. He acted all sheepish about revealing his methods, saying they were so simple. Classic Barry mix of pride and false modesty.
Did he talk about the Prince of Wales encounter?
Reluctantly at first, called it bragging, but then admitted it with a smirk, merely shows how far a gentleman burglar can get.
The public ate it up.
Absolutely. Autograph requests flooded in. He posed for photos in his cell, appeared in newsreels. He even gave this performative speech, holding up his manacled hands, declaring crime doesn't pay.
While becoming more famous than ever for his crimes.
The irony was thick, and it highlights that jazz age phenomenon of paying criminals for their stories. It often helped them pay their lawyers. Infamy became a commodity. Hashtag 14. Prison, parole, and a peaceful end. 1933-1981.
Okay, so Barry beats the rap on the Auburn riot charges, but he still has that long sentence for the burglaries. What happens next?
He gets transferred from Auburn to Attica in 1933. Attica was newer, more modern, ironically considered a privilege compared to Auburn, even though it was still a tough place, overcrowded.
And Anna, how was she doing?
Sadly, her health started failing. Cancer, multiple surgeries. She eventually passed away in 1939.
Did Barry get to see her? Go to the funeral?
No. He applied for parole to attend, but was denied. Just a blunt, no dice from the authorities. Heartbreaking for him, surely.
Did he just serve out his time quietly after that?
He seemed to. During World War II, he actually became a regular blood donor, part of the prison's Gallon Club. Joked they were trying to make up for our previous bad habits, a hint of that
Completed
supposed
right.
rehabilitation.
When did he finally get out?
April 12, 1948. After 21 years behind bars, he walks out into a completely different world.
The post-war era. Jets. Faster cars.
Sleek new cars, planes like the Lucky Lady II flying nonstop around the world, the first commercial jets. Must have seemed futuristic after being locked up since the late 20s.
But his freedom didn't last long initially.
Nope. Nassau County detectives were waiting for him right outside the prison gates. Arrested him immediately on those old 22-year-old indictments from the Long Island heists.
Unbelievable. After all that time.
He must have been crushed. He pleaded with the DA, Frank Galata, said, God knows I've paid a penalty. I am depending upon your fairness and mercy.
Did Galata go easy on him?
Galata was known as a tough prosecutor, but he was apparently impressed by Barry's demeanor now. Barry seemed genuinely ready to cooperate, saying things like, if there was so much as a cufflink left, I would tell you. Galata, maybe seeing a truly changed man, made a compassionate call and dropped the old charges. Finally, Barry was really free.
And he went back to Worcester, became an honest man?
He did, from 1949 until he died in 1981. Worked at the Montrose Dairy, making sandwiches, running the register. Just a quiet life. Most people had no idea the avuncular man behind the counter was the famous gentleman thief.
Did the local police know? Keep an eye on him?
They knew who he was, were initially surprised he came back, but also relieved he stayed out of trouble. One report just said, he's an honest man.
Did the media leave him alone?
Not entirely. There were still articles, like in Coronet and a big piece in Life magazine in 56, a thief who stole $10 million in jewels tells how he did it. The legend lingered.
How did he portray himself in those later stories?
Interestingly, he tended to downplay Monahan's role, painted himself more as the lone wolf mastermind, probably better for the image. He even went on TV once with another reformed thief, Eddie O'Leary, swapping stories.
Still playing up the charm, the old anecdotes.
Oh, yeah. Telling the Prince of Wales story, the trick with the female dog for the watchdogs, leaning into that roguish persona.
What about his family? Did they know about his past?
He doted on his grandnephews and grandnieces, but he kept his criminal past completely secret from them. Scars were explained away as childhood injuries. Prison time was away at school or a government hotel.
He really compartmentalized his life
Yeah.
and embraced his veteran status.
Fully. Joined the Military Order of the Purple Heart, marched proudly in Veterans Day parades, became a respected community figure. In 1975, Worcester actually named him Veteran of the Year.
Veteran of the Year. Arthur Barry. That's incredible.
A remarkable twist. He outlived almost everyone involved in his case. King, Hurley, Scaffa the Private Eye.
Did he ever talk about his past publicly in later years?
He did, in a way. Spoke to church groups, even a Long Island PTA, warning teenagers about juvenile delinquency, the lure of crime, became a kind of self-appointed expert on avoiding the path he took. Apparently even ran into one of his past victims at a talk once.
What a life. How did it end?
Peacefully in 1981, he was 84, died a respected member of his community, his notorious past mostly forgotten by neighbors, though never entirely by history.
Did he express regret, looking back?
He did, quite profoundly, in that Life magazine piece. He said, "I am not good at drawing morals. When I was a young man, I had many assets. I was not only intelligent, I was clever. I could have gone anywhere to Wall Street, maybe, and made an honest fortune."
Acknowledging the wasted potential.
Yeah. He talked about the terrible price of easy money, the allure of the jazz age, and ended with this really poignant thought. "I've wished 1,000 times that someone had punished me severely the first time I ever broke the law."
Wow. Coming from him, that's quite a statement, a complex legacy.
Absolutely. Brilliance, audacity, charm, and ultimately profound regret.
What an incredible journey through the life of Arthur Berry, a man who truly defined an era with his audacious style and surprising contradictions. It's hard not to be captivated by his story, isn't it?
Absolutely. His ability to adapt, to master his chosen profession, you could say, and to navigate the complexities of both high society and the underworld, all while maintaining a certain charm. It's genuinely fascinating. It raises an important question, What does it take for someone with so much natural talent and ingenuity to choose such a dangerous path? And how much of it is shaped by the times they live in?
Exactly. And when we look at his life, from the thrill of the chase to the quiet regret of his later years, it leaves us with a provocative thought. How much do we romanticize figures like Arthur Berry, and what does that say about our own fascination with the allure of forbidden wealth and lives lived on the edge?
A perfect way to leave it. Something for you, our listener, to mull over.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you're enjoying what you hear, please consider taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, and comment on any of the platforms you're listening from. This really helps support our channel and allows us to get better and bring you even more great content. If today's review sparks your interest and you're ready to dive into a copy of the book, please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase. Not only does it make it easy for you to get your hands on the book, but it also directly supports our channel and the author, allowing us to keep bringing you more great content. Thanks again for being a part of the Daily Review community.